I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Take out your bulletin, please, and look at the picture on the front. And the picture on the front is a map of Israel during Jesus' time. And I want you to look at the place on the top, near the top, that says Galilee, and under that where Capernaum is. And then the blue part, that is the Sea of Galilee. And then the other side, which is Decapolis. And if you keep looking at that while I share a few ideas with you, then you'll know what we're talking about when we read our passage today. The Sea of Galilee is 8 miles wide at its widest from west to east. And it is 13 miles long at the longest from north down to south. Galilee was a Jewish community on the west side, and Decapolis was a Gentile community on the east side. When Jesus told his disciples to cross over to the other side of the lake, he was asking them to leave that which was comfortable and familiar and to enter that which was strange and even dangerous. And I want us to read together Luke chapter 8, verse 22 to 39. Luke chapter 8, beginning with verse 22. One day he, that is Jesus, and his disciples got into a boat, and he told them, "Let's cross over to the other side of the lake." So they set out. And as they were sailing, he fell asleep. Then a fierce windstorm came down on the lake, and they were being swamped and were in danger. They came and woke him up and said, "Master, Master, we are going to die." Then he got up and rebuked the wind and the raging waves. So they ceased, and there was calm. He said to them, "Where is your faith?" They were fearful and amazed, asking one another, "Who then is this? He commands even the winds and waves, and they obey him." Then they sailed to the region of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. When he got out on the land, a demon-possessed man from the town met him. For a long time, he had worn no clothes and did not stay in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him and said in a loud voice, "What do you have to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torment me." For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. Many times it had seized him, and though he was guarded, bound by chains and shackles, he would snap the restraints and be driven by the demon into deserted places. "What is your name?" Jesus asked him. "Legion," he said, because many demons had entered him. And they begged him not to banish them to the abyss. A large herd of pigs was there, feeding on the hillside. The demons begged him to permit them to enter the pigs, and he gave them permission. The demons came out of the man and entered the pigs, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and drowned. When the men who tended the pigs saw what had happened, they ran off and reported it in the town and in the countryside. Then people went out to see what had happened. They came to Jesus and found the man the demons had departed from, sitting at Jesus' feet, dressed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. Meanwhile, the eyewitnesses reported to them how the demon-possessed man was delivered. Then all the people of the Gerasene region asked him to leave them, because they were gripped by great fear. So getting into the boat, he returned. The man from whom the demons had departed begged him earnestly to be with him. But he sent him away and said, "Go back to your home and tell all that God has done for you." And off he went, proclaiming throughout the town how much Jesus had done for him. May God bless this reading of his holy word. I want you to notice that Jesus and his disciples got into a boat, verse 25 or 22 to 25. Jesus gave the direction. He said, "Let's cross over to the other side." And again, as soon as Jesus said the other side, these men knew what he was talking about. But Jesus, I don't want to go to the other side. I'm scared of the other side. But Jesus, you don't mean going to the other side. That's not where I want to go. That's not where my mama lets me go. But Jesus said, "Let's go to the other side." So they set out. Do you see the obedience there? So they set out. And as they were sailing, Jesus fell asleep. I love this because it shows Jesus was totally aware of what was going to happen in their lives, but Jesus was totally at peace with what is going on. I don't know about you, but I don't fall asleep just at the drop of a hat. Some people do that, and it bothers me intensely. But I take a little while to fall asleep, and I have to have a full tummy, a happy mind in order to fall asleep. I mean, if I'm worried about something, I don't fall asleep. Well, Jesus fell asleep because he was completely in control and he knew everything would be all right. Jesus fell asleep. But the disciples faced a fierce storm, and the storm came down on the lake. It's a fascinating thing. Miriam and I have been there. The Sea of, or Lake Tiberias or the Sea of Galilee is kind of in a bowl-like structure where all the land around is a little bit higher, and the Sea of Galilee is actually 500 feet below sea level. So it's kind of like in a bowl, and when the wind comes over the hills and gets into that bowl, it's like a mixing bowl. It stirs up a storm very quickly. So there was a storm that came down on the lake, and the disciples were in danger of being swamped. These were expert fishermen. They knew what they were doing, but they also knew that you don't mess with nature. They woke Jesus up and they said, "Master, we are going to die." You know, they were optimists, right? And Jesus got up and he rebuked the wind and the waves, And immediately they ceased, and all was calm. I believe this really happened. But I also believe that Luke is using it as a foretaste of what is coming next. There was a natural storm on the Sea of Galilee as they were on their way to meet a man who had a spiritual storm going on in his life. So this is almost like a preparation. If Jesus has the power to still the wind and the waves, he will also have the power to still what's going on wrong in your life and mine. Jesus says to them, verse 25, "Where is your faith?" What is faith? Faith is believing that Jesus has everything under control. And Jesus said, while I was sleeping, I was still in control. And when I got up, I was still in control. And when I rebuked the wind and the waves, I was in control. So boys, where's your faith? And the disciples were fearful and amazed. Then they start to understand a little bit more of who Jesus is. Who then is this? They ask each other. And then they say, he commands even the wind and the waves, and they obey him. In other words, the only one who has the power to command wind and the waves is the one who created them. And in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Therefore, if Jesus has the power to command the wind and the waves, Jesus is God. But I want you to know this. Excuse me. I want you to notice this is kind of a mission principle. It is not safe to go to the other side. When people say, oh, we want to go tell the gospel to people who have never heard, and other people say, well, if you go to that country, is it going to be safe? You know what the news is? It's not safe to go to the other side. It requires faith. That Jesus is in control even though things look difficult and dangerous. By the way, that's why you pray for missionaries. Because where they are going, it's not safe. But they are going sent by God and by the church, and we are supporting them by our prayers. So number one, Jesus got in the boat. Number two, they sailed to the region of the Gerasenes. Now there's a lot of talk and commentaries about where exactly the Gerasenes is. And if you look on your map, there's actually a question mark beside Gergesa. Do you see that? That's because they're not exactly sure where it was within 4 or 5 miles. They have the question mark. But Gergesa, or Gerasenes, was the opposite side of Galilee, verse 26. It was what Jesus had said in verse 22, the other side. And when Jesus got out on land, a demon-possessed man from the town met him. Now, there's a great controversy. I don't know if you've heard of it. But there's a great controversy among scholars about demon possession. Some people say it no longer exists. Demons don't exist anymore. Demon possession doesn't exist anymore. They just deny it. Denying the supernatural is a common thing these days. The problem with that is I see evidence of it. The other side of the people who talk about this is the people who see a demon under every bush. So one group denies that there are demons. The other group says, oh, look, everywhere there's a demon everywhere. And get all flustered by it. I believe that demons really exist. I believe that people nowadays, especially some people online, are putting themselves under the influence of demons. But I don't believe you have to worry about demons at all. Because just like Jesus has the power over the wind and waves, Jesus has the power over demons. So, a demon-possessed man met Jesus from the town, and he was a very easy person to recognize because he had no clothes on. And he hadn't worn clothes for a long time. And there is a reason that he had no clothes on, and you read about it in other passages where he was continually cutting himself with stones. There's a thing going on among our young people. I don't know if you're aware of it, but people are cutting. And it's not something that God wants them to do, but they're doing it for self-injury and pain. Well, this man was cutting himself with stones, and as he was cutting himself, so often all over his body, his clothes were falling off. So he ended up having no clothes. And not only that, he had no clothes, and he was homeless. It says he did not live in a house, but he lived or dwelt in the tombs. And there is an over-preoccupation with death among some people. They always wear black. They're always morbid in their thoughts and in the pictures they draw. An over-preoccupation with death. That's what this guy had. He was living in the tombs. And Jesus, when the man saw Jesus, he had an instant reaction to Jesus. He cried out and he fell down before Jesus and he asked Jesus a question. What is it with you and me? That's the literal translation. What do you have to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? This demon-possessed man knew exactly who Jesus was. Perhaps he knew who Jesus was better than many of the other people did. This man knew that Jesus was the Son of the Most High God. And then he made a request. Excuse me. I beg you, do not torment me. Why did he make that request? Well, Luke gives the explanation of verse 29. Jesus had commanded the spirit to come out of the man. So if Jesus said, you demon spirit, you come out of him, and then the man says, don't torment me, it's actually the demon who's talking. I don't want to get punished. And it says when the verse 29, the second part, Luke gives us some explanation. He says, when the unclean spirit would seize this man, even though he was guarded, that means there were people around him, even though he was bound by chains and by shackles, hands and feet bound with chains, he would snap the restraints. That's superhuman power. He would snap the restraints and he would be driven to these desert places where he was in the tombs. And Jesus asked him a question. What is your name? Do you think Jesus knew what this man's name was? I think he did. I think Jesus wanted the people watching to know what was going on. So Jesus asked this man, what is your name? And this man says in a loud voice, Legion. Well, what's Legion got to do with it? What is that? I'm glad you asked. Remember that I told you they were no longer in Jewish territory, now they were in Gentile territory. And the Romans were in charge on this side of the lake. And a Roman legion was 6,000 soldiers. That's what a Roman legion was. So when this man said legion, he's implying that 6,000 demons were in him. Now, it not necessarily was true. It could have been less demons than that. But that's what he was implying when he said the word legion. My name is Legion. Luke puts it this way, because many demons had entered into him. And the demons start talking to Jesus. Look at verses 31 and 32. The demons begged Jesus for permission. They begged him not to banish them to the abyss. Lord, don't get rid of us. Don't kill us so that we go into the abyss. And by the way, there was a large herd of pigs feeding on the hillside. Now, sometimes we're tempted to think, wait a minute, this is a nice farmer man, and he's herding pigs, and don't you feel sorry for the farmer? Well, just wait a bit. If you look into the culture and the history, these legions had banners. And as the banner would go across to say that their military troop was coming, the banner had a mascot on the top of the banner. And do you know what the mascot for a Roman legion was? A pig. So these pigs were a symbol of the Roman legion. They were a symbol of what the Roman power was. They were kind of like, almost like little gods to these Roman people. So these demons begged to be put into the pigs. And Jesus gave them permission. And the demons obeyed the command of Jesus. They came out of the man and they entered the pigs. And look how destructive these demons are. The herd of pigs rushed down the bank into the lake and drowned. The demons were determined to kill. By the way, did you know that that's Satan's modus operandi, his way of working? He is determined to steal, kill, and destroy. And if you let Satan have part in your life, he is determined to kill you, to steal from you, and to destroy you. Don't let him have his way in you. So, the demons came out of the man, entered the pigs, and the pigs rushed down the bank into the lake and drowned. Mission lesson number 2. It is not easy to work on the other side. It's not easy to go to the other side, and it's not easy to work on the other side. Going to the other side requires faith. Working on the other side requires courage. To confront the evil. And by the way, in some ways in North America, the other side has come to us. And to witness and to be a light to the people in our world is going to require courage. So, verse 34 to 39, Jesus and his disciples prepared to return to Galilee. The men who tended the pigs reported in town what had happened. The people came out to see what had happened. They came to Jesus and they find the man who had been demon-possessed. All of a sudden he was dressed and he was in his right mind. That was a miracle. They didn't have men's dress for less down the street. The fact that this man was dressed and is in his right mind was a miracle. Jesus provided it for him. And that means the tenders of the pig and the people that came from town, they were afraid. What is Jesus going to do to our system? What is Jesus going to do to our mascot? What is Jesus? We can't have him stay here. We're afraid of him. And there are people that don't come to church because they're afraid of what Jesus could do in their lives. So the men who tended the pigs reported, and then the eyewitnesses who saw the event reported how he was delivered, verse 36 and 37. All the people asked Jesus to leave them. Isn't that sad? There are people in Newman who asked Jesus to leave. There are people here who ask Jesus to leave. They don't want Jesus to rule over them. All the people asked Jesus to leave. They were gripped by fear, great fear. And you know what happened when these people asked Jesus to leave? It's really sad. He left. He did what they asked him to do. And I'm afraid that we live in a nation where people have asked Jesus to leave. He's not welcome in our schools. Oh yeah, we have a good news club. But do you remember what we used to have? We used to have prayer and Bible reading in schools. We don't do that no more. We asked Jesus to leave. And you know what he did? He left. The people asked Jesus to leave, and he did. He got into the boat so he could return. But then there was this man who had been changed, who had been transformed by Jesus. And the man who was delivered begged to go along with Jesus. Wow, isn't this wonderful? A new Christian wants to be a disciple. He wants to learn more about Jesus. Wouldn't this be great? But catch this. When the demons begged Jesus to go into the pigs, he permitted them. When the people asked Jesus to leave, he left. But when the saved man who had been transformed and the demons had left him, when the saved man asked to go with him, Jesus said no. Oh, how dare Jesus say no? when Jesus is Lord of your life, he has the right to say no to you. But listen to why Jesus said no. Jesus told him what to do. Go back to your home. Where was your home? The town nearby. Go back to your home and tell them all that God has done for you. If this man had gotten onto the boat with Jesus, he would have gone back to Galilee, and this place would have remained dark. The Decapolis on the other side, on the east side of the lake, it would have remained dark. But Jesus said no to him, and this man became a one-man witnessing machine. And look what he says. Luke says, the man went. That means he obeyed. He went home and told his friends and his family and everybody around all that God had done for him. He proclaimed throughout the town how much Jesus had done for him. And you know, Luke talks about Jesus going to that area later, and he says he met with believers. Why? Because this man was willing to take a no from Jesus. Because this man understood why Jesus said no. And this man was willing to obey Jesus and go home to his family and friends to tell them what God has done for him. And people responded to this man in a positive way when they responded to Jesus' presence in a negative way. My last mission lesson is not only is it difficult to go to the other side, and not only is it dangerous to go to the other side, but it's also there is a harvest on the other side. We must go. It requires obedience. Jesus had the authority over the wind and the waves. He had the authority over the evil spirit. And Jesus used this authority to set this prisoner free. And he wants to set you free today. He wants to set you free from your fear, from your failure, from your sin. But you have to come to him. And when he sets you free, he's going to give you this message. Go home. You know why go home? Because you got a big family. And your big family needs to hear the gospel. And the only way your big family is going to hear the gospel is if you tell them. Because you have friends that Pastor Tim can never talk to. And the only way these friends will know about Jesus is if you tell them. And Jesus says, tell them for me that I love them and that I came to let them know. See, I identify with this demon-possessed man. To my knowledge, I have never been demon-possessed. But Jesus has set me free from my sin and myself. And that's pretty bad. And when he set me free, he asked me to go home and tell my friends what good things God had done for me. And people are starting to listen. What about you? Let's pray. Dear Lord, Thank you that you have authority. All authority in heaven and earth is given unto me, you said. And you showed that you had authority by stopping the wind and the waves. And Jesus, thank you that you have authority over my life. You have the authority to cleanse my heart from sin and bring me into God's family. Help me to surrender to your authority. And when you tell me no, it's because you want me to do something better. You want me to go home and tell my friends what Christ has done for me. Help me to obey your authority. If Jesus is speaking to your heart, maybe